Welcome to our Meet the Parents podcast, the show where we share stories from everyday life to help with the ups and downs of parenting. We'll have honest conversations as together we grow everyday faith in our homes. Be sure to follow us on your favourite podcast provider, or you can check out the video version on YouTube. All episodes and show notes can be found at livingrock.church/meettheparents. I'm here today with the lovely Fran. Thank you for joining us, Fran. We're going to chat about starting school and share some ideas between us about our experiences and the journey of how we help children start school well. And we've got some really great tips. I've seen Fran's notes and really good ideas here. So thanks for coming today. Can you tell us a little bit about your family, Fran, and who's in it and what your superpower would be if you could have a parenting superpower?
Thank you for having me. So I'm Fran, I'm married to Adam, and I have 3 children, 3 girls, aged 11, 6 and 4. And superpower-wise, I talk about this quite a lot actually. I don't know why. It's not that anybody asked me, it's just that I often will say I wish I could go back in time and just relive the experiences that I've had with our girls. We've got some pictures in our kitchen of them at 3 different stages of life. And whenever I look at them, I think, I can't believe we've lived through all this to now. And I'd love to go back and relive them as newborns and then toddlers, like just nice little moments and little things that I remember. I just want to relive it.
Yeah.
Not to change anything. I wouldn't change anything.
I sometimes think, when you bottle things up and you think, I want to save that, you'd want to revisit it and go, let's open that bottle again and just see what it was like. Yeah. And do you have any funny, embarrassing stories, or
I thought about this.
Really sensible family,
I actually texted Adam. I said, "Do we have any funny or embarrassing stories?" Because I couldn't think of a single thing that was really embarrassing. I think we've just been through all the normal parenting failures. Yeah. And I'm sure there's some things that are funny or were funny to us at the time that now we just think, well, that's just normal. It's happened with every child. Yeah. And I couldn't think of anything that's funny.
That's okay. So one of the things we wanted to talk about today was about helping children cope with change, and particularly focusing on starting school and particularly primary school, because that's where you've got a lot of experience and expertise. And we know change can be really difficult for all children, can't it? And I think just sometimes their behaviour can change and life suddenly feels a bit more chaotic and can be a bit more anxious for the children and for us as parents. So can you tell us about a time where you had to cope with a change in your family and kind of some of the things you did about that?
Yeah. We've had a lot of changes over the years. We've been married for 13 years and lived in about 8 houses.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of change over the years, especially with Alice, our eldest. But the most recent change that we've had to navigate, which has been the hardest, was me going back to work full time. I was a stay-at-home mum for 3.5 years. And then I went back to work full time, and that was a huge change for me, for my routine, for the responsibility in the house and priorities and things like that. But then for Orla, our youngest, she suddenly went from having me at home all the time or working part-time to being at preschool full time. Wow. And that was a huge change for her. During the pandemic as well, she was only 1. So during all her social skills development, we were locked down.
Wow, that was such a tough time.
Yeah, she wasn't seeing family and friends. She wasn't coming to church and socialising with children her age. So going to preschool full time was a huge transition for her and a challenge for all of us as we tried to support her in that. It was very difficult. I felt awful. And I remember her first day, because I started my job a few days before she went for her first day. And I said goodbye to her, and she was crying, and she was angry at me. I could see she was angry at me for leaving her. Yeah. And I didn't cry. I'm not normally one to cry when they go to school or anything. But I just had this horrible feeling inside, gut-wrenching feeling all day long. And I remember I prayed probably the most I've ever prayed that day, because I just couldn't stop thinking about her and thinking, she's so angry with me. How is she going to have a good day? How is she going to make friends and build relationships and things like that? And at the end of the day, when I saw her and she ran at me and gave me a big cuddle, it was all of that anxiety was completely relieved in both of us. Yeah. And it was just from that day on, figuring out a new routine and figuring out that time where we could have our one-to-one time so that she still felt like she got that part of me.
Yeah. That's really key, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Having that connection despite circumstances.
Yeah.
And one of the things I wanted to look into a bit was, obviously that changes and new starts in things can create some more challenging behaviour and anxieties. And some children just don't know what to do with those feelings, do they? They kind of, they can express it in very almost inappropriate ways. You're like, oh, hello, what's going on here then? And it's like, because they just don't have the language always to communicate. Well, how have you helped them navigate the big feelings, if you like, and when that's sort of going on?
The big feeling, anxiety presents in so many different ways. And working in a school as well, I see so many small ways that children will communicate that they've got an anxiety or a worry or a fear. They could be nail biting or become very tactile with an adult and want lots of kisses and cuddles, and you have to be very careful with that. Or they can lash out with their friends and family. We've had multiple families who've come to us and said at home their behaviour is just terrible, and we're like, oh, we're not seeing that at school, because at school they're masking it, they're pushing it down, they're holding it in, and when they get home, when they feel safe, that's when they're letting it all out. And it's very difficult to manage. And I do feel, I guess, the home is
the safe space, isn't it?
It is.
It's where you feel I'm free to be angry or
And obviously they
upset.
love you so much. You are their safe person. You're the one that they feel comfortable showing their true self to. And it doesn't matter what kind of closeness or bond they have with their TA or their teacher. It's never going to be the same. It's supposed to be different for that reason. And it's really important when managing the big feelings and emotions that you do give them the time to express it and get it all out, because the body physically wants that. It wants this emotion out of it. And I've talked a lot with children at school about how inside us we have a cup, and that cup fills up with all our feelings, like water's being poured in. And I've used an actual cup and water to demonstrate this. You know, if they feel sad, a little bit goes in, or happy, or disappointed, or frustrated, or angry, or anxious. And it fills up and fills up and fills up till it has to overflow. And that's exactly how the body feels. It has to overflow and let these emotions out. And the only place that they can do that is where they feel safe to do that. So at school, they might put a lid on that cup and hold it in until the moment that they see their parents, and then release it. And it's hard as a parent to let them express that, especially in public. And I find it incredibly difficult, because that seems to be where my children always release their emotions.
I don't think yours are alone, Fran.
It's always in public. It's always in a time-sensitive situation when we want to have a family photo, and suddenly they decide, you know what? I don't want a family photo today, and I'm going to explode. Like, okay, well, thanks. Great.
Appreciate that.
Because now everyone's looking at me. But it is important that if you are struggling as well, that it's okay for you to say, right, you need to stay here, or put them in the pushchair, whatever it is that you have, and say, somebody else is just going to have to talk to you for a minute, because I need to take myself away, and I need to calm myself down.
That's really key.
And I need to pray, and I need to bring myself back down and regulate myself, because there is no point dealing with a child who is showing you their emotions if your emotions are overflowing at the same time.
I think that's really important, isn't it? It's so easy to be caught in the moment with them.
Oh my gosh,
And then you're shouting over each other. And that achieves nothing, does
and
it?
all that does is upset everyone even more and create more stress and more anxiety.
So right.
And I have been there very recently. And I have had to then pull myself away and say, hang on a minute, I know what I'm doing wrong here. I need a minute. And it's okay to do that.
Stick them in front of the telly just to regroup. It's fine.
iPads, whatever.
You do what you've got to do for that moment.
A few minutes, Yeah,
and then you have
definitely.
a proper chat. That sounds great. I remember our eldest was really upset one time. We were moving house, and it was a really important change. We were praying about where to go, and we'd said to God, oh, show us the village or the town where we need to move to. And we'd prayed loads, and we felt really called to this particular village. But he was he'd just started school. So he was in year 2, and we were moving to a new area. He was going to leave his best friend, who he'd known since birth, and he was not happy. And we talked about it in the whole process, but it was only when the for sale sign went up, he went, I don't like that. And honestly, there was this one day, he ran home from school, hugged the board and wouldn't let go of it. And I was like, what are you doing? He said, I'm not moving. I don't want to go anywhere. I am not moving this space ever. And he just held on to this for sale, and I had to prise his fingers off. I was just like, I'm so sorry, sweetheart, but it's going to be okay. And we're going to do this, but we're going to do it together. And it took a while, because I was quite emotional about that. I was like, oh, now I feel really rubbish. I was like, God, are you sure you want us to move? Because I have to know for sure. And I managed to prise his little body off the for sale board and sat him down. I said, let's have a chat. So I think we got a nice drink, sat down on the sofa, said, look, let's just pray to God again, and let's just chat about what, so he can tell you why it's important that we move. And I can't remember exactly, because it's been a long time, but he did cope, and he moved on, and in his head, he got his head around it. I think that was the last moment And from there on, after that chat, we just accepted that was a decision we had to make and it was not changing. And so we embraced it. And I think I did have to have a lot of time just sitting and loving him, hugs and, reassurance. And sometimes you just have to overload on that, don't you? Just to reaffirm and keep everything else the same. So nothing else is changing, just the house. You can still see your best friend. He can come for a cup of tea. He can come around to play and let's book a date in the diary and get his mum over. And it just helped that transition by saying, I'm on it. I see your pain. But sometimes, we have to prepare our children for that change that's coming, haven't we? Like I was saying to Jo about moving house. Are there any other ways we can help children practically in anticipation of starting school and changing to new situations? Can we put things in place? It's quite a lot. I guess.
There's lots of things that we can do practically to prepare children for school. We're in a time now where every child should get 15 hours free childcare when they're turned 3. And that's changing. The news says apparently that's changing in a few months. But that affords children the time to be in a setting where it is part of the early years program that they prepare them for school. So from the summer term, right from after the Easter holidays, nurseries, preschools, I think most childminders as well, will ask for them to take a little PE kit in. Just shorts, T-shirt, trainers. Doesn't have to be anything special. Nothing bought special either. Doesn't have to be school colours or whatever. But it's so that they can practice getting changed in that kind of setting, which they need to get used to, because when they get changed at school, it's exactly the same. Mummies and daddies aren't there to do it for you. And nurseries and preschools especially are very good at preparing children for school in this way, in a very practical way. They teach them to dress themselves, put their own coats on. They teach them so many different ways that they could put their own coat on, that it's quite a thing to watch at school when they first come in and everyone's putting their coat on in a very different way that you would never have thought of before. A lot of it is lying the coat down upside down at the minute and putting their arms in the sleeve and then flipping it over their heads, which I would never think to do as an adult. I just put one arm in and then find the next one. But it's quite a thing. But it's really great for the children to have that independence and feel like, do you know what, I've practiced this, I know what I'm doing. So when they come to school and they say, right, today's your PE lesson, it's the first time we're going to get changed, I'm going to split the class. We always split the class because there's otherwise too many altogether. You're going to go in this room and you're going to get yourself changed. And they don't think, I can do this. We've been doing this at preschool. I remember this. And they can just do it. And it's really good to be independent going to school. It makes them feel like a big kid at big school. I'm going to big school. And I am a big kid now. I can do this, which is great.
I remember one girl when I was teaching in foundation, she hadn't practiced. Honestly, I'll never forget her face. She walked up to the teacher and she just went, I am ready. And presented herself like, you may dress me. And we just looked and went, you're having a laugh, aren't you? Because it's you're one of 30 children right now. And I think that's important to remember, that the teacher doesn't have time you would as a parent or in a preschool setting to change your one child completely. So the more they can do, the more relaxed they'll be in that setting, because it becomes quite an anxious time if everyone else is ready and you're the one still taking your socks off. And please help with tights. That was another thing. Tights are horrendous, aren't they?
Tights are
Get inside out and all sorts. But anything you can practice is really helpful, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, putting on school uniform, taking school uniform off, buttons. There's some stores, I don't know where these parents are getting these things because I've never seen them, but where they've got buttons on the outside of the T-shirt or the jumper, but then it's actually Velcro. Genius.
Smart.
But also do help your children with buttons, because it's a life skill.
Yeah, it is. Been there. Yeah. And are there any routines that you found helpful in getting ready and preparing for the day kind of thing?
Yeah.
When they're starting somewhere new, just kind of what do you put in practice?
Getting ready in somewhere new.
Yeah.
We've had... my eldest is 11, so there's been a lot of different routines that we've tried over the years, especially when new children have come along and we've tried to suddenly throw them into a routine.
Yes.
That's been quite a challenge. And I've tried all sorts. I've tried waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and being one of those 5 a.m. people who does everything before going to work. I am not a 5 a.m. person. I can barely open my eyes at 5 a.m. I've tried making lunches the night before, having everything ready the night before, and it always lasts a couple of days, and then it's just not who we are as a family. We're very blessed to be in a time where all the girls get up themselves now and get their own breakfast.
Amazing.
So that job is done for me. I don't need to do that. And so that gives me extra time in the mornings to make breakfast, for myself
Yes.
to make lunches fresh, because we did find that lunches that are left in the fridge overnight aren't quite the same the next day.
Yeah.
But if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
But what works for one family definitely won't work for another
That's
family.
the key, isn't it?
And especially if you have a child who is neurodivergent, what everybody tells you to do, prepare the night before, get them ready the night before, get the uniforms ready the night before, it might not work for you.
Yeah.
And my big tip is don't change your morning routine too much.
Yeah.
As you're leading up to those first few days, just assess, what did I do to get them ready for nursery, preschool, get me to work on time, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What do I need to do that's extra this time? Because it might be that the only extra thing you need to do is pack the lunches, in which case maybe that will work doing that the night before.
Yes.
Sometimes if a child, especially as they get older, having a set uniform can be really helpful because they've not got to choose what they want to wear anymore. It's not going to be a battle or a fight or that's not appropriate for the weather outside. It's snowing, you can't wear a swimming costume today. Those sorts of things. You've got to wear a school uniform. So let's put that on. This is what you're wearing. And it makes life so much easier that you might then be afforded more time in the morning.
That's true.
Also, nursery sessions, some of them start at 7:30, 7:45. Well, school definitely doesn't start at that time. So that might give you the extra hour in the morning to think, actually, I could do all of this in the morning and still get out on time.
Yeah.
And it can still be a nice, calm situation. It doesn't have to be stressful.
Yeah.
And that's the main key, is try and keep it as low stress as possible. Because if a child goes to school feeling stressed, that's how it sets them up for the day. And then they feel stressed. And it's the teacher and TA's job then to kind of de-stress them and work out, hang on a minute, why are we feeling like this?
Yeah.
What's happened at home?
Yeah.
Let's restart. And that can take a while, and then they're missing out on key learning or socialization or any activities that are going on that actually they might enjoy a bit more than coming to school stressed.
I remember one parent when I was working in foundation who had a genius idea. She made like a days of the week tag for the book bag, and it said which days were like PE kit, because I think she would forget, and she was a working mum full time, and she was like, I can't hold this in my head. So she made this tag, and I thought, wow, that's such a good idea. Right on there, the days you've got PE kit, so the child can say, oh, I've got PE kit, and they remember themselves as well. It's library day, book day on Friday, so make sure you've got your library book. And she just got this little pictures. I didn't have to read it or anything, and I thought that was such a little top tip as well. Just anything with pictures on to help remember what's what.
Oh, definitely.
They can organise themselves.
With PE kits, they often don't come home. That's another thing that parents don't seem to realise when they very first start school, is you will take the PE kit with you one day and it won't come home until half term. And that's perfectly normal. It's okay because they wear it for maybe an hour a week. So
if they get in there in time.
Yeah, exactly.
They can often get in for 5 minutes.
Especially that first half term, often they get changed and get down there, do a quick activity, and then it's back to get undressed again. And when they get undressed, they will put on their clothes backwards, inside out, upside down, all sorts of things. I've seen everything. Sometimes we have pants lying around and we think, but we told you not to take those off. So whose are these? They often don't have names in either, so that's not very helpful. But then if your child comes out and they're wearing something that is inside out, they will still have been praised for being independent. So try not to make a big deal out of it. Just let them, just praise them. Well done, I can see you got yourself changed after PE. Take them home and then maybe help them figure out how to correct it, rather than saying, that's on backwards, let's change that, and then doing it for them. That's a really good thing.
Yeah. Shoes as well. Remember, shoes are always on the wrong feet, aren't they?
Yeah, and if your child's got laces, help them figure out laces. Because that is one thing that I spend most of my time doing, is laces.
Start with Velcro.
Start with Velcro.
Definitely start with Velcro.
Also with preparing lunches, if your child, from foundation to year 2 now, all children get free school meals, which is a wonderful thing, because having a hot dinner in the day has been proven that really helps their brains to then work better in the afternoon. And we get more out of them. Most schools now, the way that lunches work is on a colour-coded system, and they have different options each day, but you can choose red or yellow or green. Some schools don't have green. But what I've been doing with my girls recently, to take out that stress of having to choose something on the way to school or at school, and for me to know what they're choosing, so I can ask at the end of the day, did you enjoy the chicken curry? Is on a Sunday evening, we look at the menu, we go through the menu, and I write on the calendar which child's having red, which child's having yellow. And then I also know the days where they say, actually, I'm not going to want that, I don't like that. So then there'll be a packed lunch, and I'll know in advance, okay, packed lunch on a Wednesday, that's fine.
So you're prepared, and it helps with your shopping, it helps with everything, doesn't it?
And then when they go to school and their teacher says it's chicken curry or jacket potato, they will already know, oh, I'm having a chicken curry today, or I'm having red option today. And they can just confidently say that and then move on to the morning activity. And it just alleviates alleviates that anxiety and worry and a bit of stress in the morning when they come in and suddenly they've got to choose what they're having for lunch, and it's hours away to them. They have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet.
No, just have breakfast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's such a good idea. I love that. And I think something we can forget in all this like anticipating change with our kids is ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know as parents, you know, it's a big deal for us. I remember each of mine starting school, and we were just chatting before, weren't we, about how my daughter's just finishing high school, and you know, I'm like emotional about that, and you forget yourself to look after yourself. Sometimes you can easily get caught in caring for your children, but it's a big deal for us as parents. How can we navigate that as parents? How have you got any top tips there? You've obviously been through lots of changes.
And I've been through different changes in my own career. I've spent time as a stay-at-home mum, and that afforded me more time to spend in the playground chatting with parents. And that is one thing, is be brave, talk to other parents. Don't just stand off to the side. Get in there, get in the queue, get mixed in, say hi to people as you see them. Before school and after school, when we were walking home, when Elodie, my middle, was in foundation, we just happened to walk the same way as a dad and his son a certain amount of time. And she would run off and go and play with this child. And I had to be really brave and be like, do you know what, I'm going to talk to him, because we're both parents, we're both doing the same thing. So I would just talk to him. And then we created a really lovely relationship, and we would talk in the mornings and we'd talk in the afternoons when we were doing drop-offs and pickups. And he actually introduced me then to other parents that he already knew, and I introduced him to parents that I already knew, and it created more of a community within the parents for that class, which was super helpful and lovely. And then I've had other instances with my eldest. The first birthday party she went to, that mum was, I don't know where she got the courage from, but she just talked to everyone. She just radiated this confidence that she was the person who knew everything, you could go to for anything. Wow. And they had this huge party for their daughter and invited the whole class, as most parents do at that age. And she got all of our numbers when we RSVP'd via text. And then she texted us back after the party, said, thanks so much for coming. Is it okay if I put your number in the WhatsApp group for the class? And nearly all of us said yes. And then we had a WhatsApp group where we all reintroduced ourselves, said whose child was ours, and then party invites went into there, coffee mornings, meetups, birthday parties for adults, like adult birthday parties.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, it became our own little group, our own little community. Obviously, with that, you have to be a little bit careful that it doesn't go the wrong way. Yeah. But it started off absolutely wonderful, and I made loads of friends. And now Alice is in her last year of primary school, which is wild to me.
That is mad.
But I'm still friends with those parents, and a lot of them have now got younger siblings that are coming up through the school. So I'm still seeing those parents, and I'm going to see them for years to come. And that's how we started, was just with this one parent being super brave and saying, do you know what, I'm going to put us all in a group, and then we can meet up whenever we want.
That's
which was amazing.
So we could be that parent, couldn't we?
Yeah.
We could be the one who initiates. And it does take courage. I remember
does.
standing on the school playground many times thinking, I don't feel I can interrupt that family, those people chatting. Or they know each other really well.
They seem to be best friends. Their kids always play together. I'm not going to interrupt there. Yeah.
I remember once I did pray. I remember when we actually first moved to the area we were in now. And I prayed and I said, God, you've brought me here for a reason. Show me who I should talk to. And actually that helped, because I felt the Holy Spirit prompt a few faces, and I looked out and God said, go and speak to that person and really encourage them. And so I went over, and it took lots of guts, because I'm quite a shy person, believe it or not. And I don't like interrupting people. And I just said, oh, hi, I just wanted to say hi, you know, if you lived here long, and you know, you can just make small talk. Often I found mums actually were on the whole really friendly and would draw you in and go, oh yeah, hi, are you all right again, or you're new to the area, or sorry, you know, let me show you around. And it just takes that first few days of courage and kind of overcoming any preconceived ideas about who's friends with who and whether you're fit. And if you don't get on, then fine, try someone else another day. It's not a problem. But I think I found it harder since I've been working, because I don't have that opportunity to be in the playground at all. I work at the school that my children go to. So I'm already inside, I'm already at work. But something that I used to be a lot braver. I think the pandemic kind of took some of that confidence from me. But going to the kids' parties, now that COVID restrictions are gone, essentially, more children are having big parties where they're inviting the whole class, and going to as many of those parties as possible is a great opportunity to meet other parents, because your kids are off having fun. They've got bouncy castles, they've got magicians, they've got weird pets and animals that they're playing with and touching. It's very bizarre.
but you're sitting at a table with other parents and you can talk about all sorts of things. And the more parties you'll go to, the more parents you'll kind of mix with, and the more children will then recognise you as somebody that they feel safe with. I've been to multiple parties recently as my children are getting older where some of the children are being dropped off and left, but because they've seen me at school and they know me as so-and-so's mum, they'll come up to me and be like, oh, Elodie's mum, can you hold my bag? Can you hold my coat? Can I put my shoes with yours? And I'm like, that's fine. I will look after you. And then I just hope and pray that they don't break their arm on the bouncy castle because I don't know what to do in that situation.
Somebody else will. I remember crying a lot when my daughter, I cry a lot, I think, about my children. I don't cry a lot about much, but I cry about my children. And I remember Annie starting preschool, and for me it was the preschool start because I'd been with her all the time, and for me that change was the biggest change because she was my last child, and suddenly I'd forgotten who I was. You were just saying like your self-confidence, and I remember thinking, well, what do I do without my kids around? I don't know how to be myself anymore. And I did a food shop, and I would actually encourage anyone on that sort of stage to go for a coffee with someone, to pre-book something in the diary and say, I need you. And I arranged for somebody to be with me at least for an hour of that day. And I had a coffee. The time flew because you think, oh, it's going to be all day. I'm going to be so lonely. And you're like, it was like 2 hours by the time I'd taken them, come back, put some washing on, tidied up the mess, had a coffee and gone out again. So it does fly by. But I just remember thinking, I remember playing that, and I still do it to myself, that ABBA song slipping through my fingers. I just like tortured myself by playing the song.
You have to let the emotions out, see?
I let out my big feelings. I cried at slipping through my fingers, and every so often when I hear it now, I'm like, oh, I remember that day. But that's okay. And it's important to recognise I felt like a grief for myself because it was the end of a season for me and for her. And each season, she's just finishing high school, and I'm like, oh gosh, that's the end of another season. And now I'm going to be embracing potentially having 3 adults soon. And I'm like, that's a whole new season.
That's a complete new season,
So I think it's important to validate yourself and think,
absolutely.
Give yourself a bit of slack and go, do you know what, for a few days, just chill and process a little bit.
Yeah, because they need that as well. They need to see that you're human too, and that this is hard for you as well as it's hard for them. And a lot of the time, children will try and bottle up feelings if they feel like you can't handle it. But if you show them, do you know what? I'm just really sad that I'm not with you all the time. And it's okay if you're sad about that too. We can be sad together. And we can spend that extra time together before you go to bed or anything. And we can talk about your day, and we can talk about what we missed about each other, or what was good, what was made you happy today. And that bedtime is usually when children offload every word that they haven't managed to get out of them that day.
It's true.
And that's definitely something we did, is we got them to bed, get them ready for bed about half an hour earlier than they actually needed to go to bed, just to give them that time to offload everything that their brain had processed from the day. And quite often that's when they would give us little snippets into, well, I didn't like this, and this made me upset, but then this made me happy, and I met this friend, and that was really helpful then. Because then we put them to bed and go away and go, did you hear what they said about that? Maybe that's something we should look into, or maybe we should keep an eye on that. Because then after they've gone to bed, you've got that kind of brain space to be like, oh, I can process what they've just said.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think also remembering when they come home from school, they're not always in that place to tell you anything. They often will tell you, I've done nothing. And that doesn't mean they've done nothing. It means they just are too full of the day and they haven't got their head around it yet. And I do think bedtime is when they've kind of dealt with it.
They've decompressed and they've let everything process, and then they're like, hang on a minute, I can tell you everything now because I'm ready to.
And I know for me, you've missed them all day and you want to hear everything, and you're like going, so did you do this? And it can be like 20 questions the minute they've come out of school. But top tip, take a breather. If they're not offering, don't go there, because they'll come back in a minute and tell you everything.
If you walk home from school, that's always a really good thing to do, because they will just start talking to you. And it might not be about school. It might be about something completely different. I know my eldest, she talks to me about what she watches on YouTube, which is completely unexciting to me. But she is so excited about it that it's lovely to hear her speak and how she communicates what she's interested in. Because I wouldn't have a clue otherwise unless we had that time where she can just speak to me and I can just listen. And it's really good because I get to decompress from my day while listening to her talk about something she's actually interested in.
That's really good.
Which is lovely.
Top tip. So how can we pray with our children in preparing them for these things? Are there any ways we can, bring our faith into this and sort of say how God can help them through these situations? Have you had any experience with that with the girls?
Orla loves to pray before she goes to bed, particularly for any ailments. If she's hurt herself or found some sort of scratch that she didn't realise she had, we'll pray for that. But something I saw on Instagram recently, not recently, like a couple of months ago. Well, that feels recently, which actually completely changed my prayer life, because I've always struggled with prayer. I've always felt like there are periods of my life where I'm really good at talking to God as if he's my father, like I'm just having a conversation. And then there are other periods where I feel like I'm just asking for things all the time. And I know that I don't want to be like that. I don't want to ask, can you help me with this? Can you do this? Can you fix it? I don't want that all the time. I just want to have a relationship.
Yeah. And
I love in the Bible where it talks about how God wants us to come to him like children.
Yeah.
Because children just talk. In fact, they're not even that bothered if you're listening sometimes.
That's true.
They just want to talk to you and they just want to spend time with you. And this Instagram post said, for a better morning, talk with God first. For a better evening, talk with God last. For a better life, talk with God all day.
Yeah.
And I saw that and it just really struck me, and I saved it, and I thought, I do talk with God all day, but I don't always start my day and I don't always end my day with God. But that's the relationship I want. So I started small. I started praying in the evening. I would get into bed and I would get myself all snuggled down. I'd turn my light off, ready to go to sleep. And I thought, do you know what? I have always had a better sleep when I have lay there talking to my husband until I fell asleep.
Yeah.
He would naturally fall asleep way before I did, probably. And I would continue talking. But it was like I needed to get everything out of my head.
Yeah.
And I thought, I need to do that with God. So that's what I just started doing. I started praying in my head. I wasn't praying out loud, mainly because I didn't want to wake anybody up or keep myself awake too long.
Yeah.
But I would pray to God about all sorts of things. And I would just keep praying because there's so much that we can be thankful for. And there's so much that we can pray for in our families and communities and schools and with our children. There's never ending things that we can pray about with our children, especially as they reach different milestones and different stages of their lives. And I realized that I had a better sleep if I prayed. And I woke up better in the morning after praying myself to sleep. It was almost like God was there with his arm on my shoulder saying, do you know what? I've got this.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing it with me. And then I started praying. I would wake up, and I have the habit of waking up and not really wanting to get out of bed. So I keep my eyes closed and pretend that I'm asleep for that little bit longer. And instead of just sitting there thinking about the day, I would pray. But a piece of advice that I got, I can't remember who gave it, whether it was at church or someone specific, but was to always start praying in thanks. Thank God for the good day ahead of you. Thank God for his help in a situation that is about to happen or something that is ongoing. Thank him.
Yes.
So pray in thanks, because God's already got it. It's not like he doesn't know what you're going to pray about. He knows that your child is starting school. He knows that you're worried about a transition. He knows if you're worried about going back to work or finding a job for yourself. If your child's going to school, it might be that you're about to go through a transition where you're like, do you know what? I can't just stay at home doing nothing. I need to find something for myself. God already knows that. And he already has the perfect job lined up for you. You just have to pray about it and then let it go. Yeah. And that's what I found super helpful and really calming, because I knew then all day, well, God's already got this because I prayed about it. I thanked him for it. And it's completely changed my mindset, even just knowing that I am putting my trust in God. And I've already done that for the day. God knows, and I can still pray throughout the day, and I still do pray throughout the day because other things crop up and I'm like, oh, hang on a minute.
And he wants to do that with you.
This is on you now.
He wants to be involved every moment of the day,
absolutely.
doesn't he? Yeah.
But my attitude, my priorities, everything has started to shift because of that. And I think that that's really important when praying with your children as well. Pray in thanks. Thank you, Lord, that we're going to come home together today. Thank you, Lord, that when we come home together, we're going to have time that we've set aside. Thank you for friendships. Thank you that we get to grow in these different areas, because that's what's happening. Your child is going to school. I know they say to learn. To learn what? They're learning to be independent. They're learning to become their own person. And they've got their identity in God already.
That's right.
They do know who they are, but now they're learning how to put who they are out into the world in a safe space. Yeah. And they're learning all the life skills that are going to help them as they grow. And God's put that into place. God's put education out there so that we can learn all these things, so we can become the best versions of ourselves for him, because that's what he wants.
Yeah, really good. I love that.
One of the best things that using Hot Rock resources, that's one of the best things that I can say, because if you get a poster, an A4 poster of whatever it is from Hot Rock, pop it in a frame and put it up on the wall. We've got the
It's the armour of God, isn't it?
Armour of God,
I saw it the other week.
Yeah, it's framed
so cool.
and it's under our keys and it's at child height so they can see it. And after I did that, the first few weeks, I would go through it with them. You know, this is this, and this is what you're taking with you to school. But now I don't have to because they know it. They look at the pictures and they know what each of them means and they will talk to each other about it. They get their shoes on, they put the coats on, and it's right there, right in front of them every single day. And Alice will read it to Orla, or Elodie will read it to Orla, and Orla will point to the pictures. And that was a free resource.
Yeah.
I didn't have to make that up myself.
There are more
I just
available.
stuck it in a frame and put it on the wall. And it's helped them in such a way that I hadn't even thought of. I just really loved it. And I thought, this is something I need to prioritise with our children. I'm going to put it somewhere where it can be prioritised. And that was really helpful, actually, to do that. And reading different stories with them, where Jesus is speaking to the children especially, so that they know that they are so important. God has put children on this earth for a reason, and there's a reason that they have this kind of curiosity and they're inquisitive and they question things and they want to know more, and it's to remind us that we need to be like that.
Absolutely.
Elodie's favourite thing, and it has been for months now, is the Last Supper. She's obsessed with the Last Supper. She reads the book. I always get the title mixed up. The Garden, the Curtain and the Cross, or the other way around?
No, that one.
Whichever way around it is. She's obsessed with that book. She reads it front to back, but specifically the part about the Last Supper. She finds it absolutely fascinating that Jesus knew what was going to happen specifically.
Yeah.
He knew what the bread meant. He knew what the wine meant specifically for him. And he shared that before it even happened.
Yeah.
And she is overwhelmed by that. And she often talks about how God already knows these things.
Yeah.
God has already done this because he knew that. So obviously he already knows this.
So she can go into her school day knowing that he knew what he was going to do then.
Yeah.
Therefore, I can go into my day because he knows what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I totally trust him because it's said in this book.
Absolutely. And you can see that in how she approaches her schoolwork, how she approaches going to school, making friends and being with the people that she loves. And she really loves her classmates. And you can see God working through her already. And she's only in year 1.
Yeah, amazing.
And it is absolutely baffling to me. And she is an example of what I should be doing as well. And I've taken that and I have tried to do as much as I can.
That's wonderful. I love how we learn from kids.
Oh, absolutely.
I remember when, earlier I was saying about when we moved house, and I remember Joe obviously having his panic about us moving. And I remember praying and going, God, how do I pray for this? And God gave me this verse. It's in Psalms 112, verse 2. It says, their children will be successful everywhere. An entire generation of godly people will be blessed. And I have used that verse for every change that has happened in my family's life. Yeah. Your children will be successful everywhere they go because they trust him for themselves, because I have committed them to him, because I want them to do his will and to be where he wants them to be. They will be successful. What that success looks like is over to God, because I don't know what that, and it can vary between the children and relative to other people around them. But they will be successful and he will be with them. So he is always there. And having that assurance for our children. Yeah. I remember one child who was struggling going into school, and the mum gave them a little cross that we'd used again in Hot Rock. And she gave it to him and said, oh, God's with you. And he held that cross as he walked into school every day, because it was a physical thing that reminded him that God was with him. And after a while, he didn't need to rely on it so much, but he found that empowering to have something that was a physical something. So even just thinking about what you've got in your home that will remind them that Jesus is with them. Yeah. And I'm not alone.
I've seen parents draw a little heart on their hand, say, you've got one, I've got one. Yeah. We're together in this, and God's with us in this.
Yes, exactly.
And that reminds them, and as long as it doesn't get rubbed off.
Yeah. By the time it rubs off, they're probably okay and through the door, aren't they? Yeah. Parenting for Faith, who I love some of their resources, and they suggest these 3 prayer points for the children to help chat to God about it. And it says, tell God what you're going to miss most about your old school. So when you're going into a new place, just chat to God and say, oh God, I'm going to miss this and this, or these friends, or this teacher that I particularly liked, and share what you're most excited about and what you're most worried about. God loves to hear about everything. So
even though he already knows it, he wants to hear it from you. Yeah. He wants to hear your voice.
Because it's powerful for us to confess it out loud.
Oh, definitely.
And ask him if there's any idea of what to do if you're feeling alone. So if you're feeling lonely, give them something to hold, or look for how to look for a friend. Ask God to show you what to do if you're feeling lonely. And ask him if there's anything anyone he wants you especially to look out for, which I love, because God sent us into our schools, into our clubs and activities, because we've got a world out there who need to know Jesus loves them. And your child may be significant, right? In helping somebody else who is feeling, if your child's fine, ask them to look for someone who's perhaps not feeling okay and who's struggling to settle. How can they look after that person and use that new start as a way of, as mission, as a way of showing God's love to somebody who isn't coping or who just needs a help finding somewhere to go if they're lost, and you know where to go. So it's beyond just ourselves, and praying with our children takes it to a whole new dimension, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So we're about to start our first day at school and our new school day. What other things can we do to get ready for that day? How can we start getting prepared? Because there's quite a lot of practical things I think we could put in place.
Yeah, definitely. It can be really tricky as the first day kind of approaches, because all of those anxieties and worries that we have as parents start to bubble up. I remember my eldest, on the night before her first day, I was already working at the school, so I knew she was going to come in with me, she was going to leave with me, but I remember not being able to sleep because I was worried about, hang on a minute, there's nobody from her nursery going to this school. How is she going to make friends? And praying really helped. Again, prayed myself to sleep because I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I needed to get it all out and pray to God about it. But practically, obviously, putting God in that transition with your child, praying with them before they go to sleep, is still a very practical thing to do to help them calm their worries and help them to know that you're thinking about the same things that they're thinking about, and you're on this page with them, and you're going to do this together, and you're going to tackle it together. Other practical things, having the uniform ready the night before, having them to choose their uniform, whether they want to wear trousers or shorts or skirts or dresses. That can be really helpful way for them to feel like they've got some say over it. They've got, this is my first day, and I'm going to choose to wear this. When you're buying the shoes, get them to have two that you kind of think, they're both appropriate for school. Which ones do you want?
Narrow the choice.
And if they've got flashing lights on them, that's always a winner.
It always is.
They love shoes with flashing lights on. That's really great to have them choose that and have that ownership over their first day. Choosing their own lunchbox, bottles, things like that. All things that you just think, these are really minor, I'll just pick them up when I do the food shop. But actually for a child, it's a huge thing because they've got to take ownership over it when they're at school as well. The teachers aren't going to hold their lunchboxes for them or pack their bags for them. That is something they need to do themselves. Another top tip, teach them how to put things in their book bags and close it and then keep it closed. Because that is one thing that we find at schools is they're so excited about having a book bag that they have to get everything out of it. And then we have to figure out how we're going to put them all back in because everybody's stuff is now in. Label everything. I work in a school and I'm still a parent that doesn't label everything, but I'm also not precious over things because we have a lot of hand-me-downs and get a lot of stuff from school sales and things. But if you don't label your child's clothes, expect that you will lose them. You will lose countless cardigans.
They all look the same, don't they?
Everything looks the same. And if they haven't got a name in, they will just go in the lost property box. And if you're sure that you've lost something, check the lost property box.
I've spent many an hour in a lost property box.
I remember with Alice, I did label a lot of her cardigans and T-shirts and things that I thought, this is Alice. She's definitely going to lose that. Things that she mostly lost were cardigans, socks. I don't understand that. I'm still not going to label her socks because I feel like that is taking it a step too far.
That's way too far,
But that's just who she is. Whereas Elodie lost cardigans, countless cardigans. But again, I had so many hand-me-downs and so many things. I just said, do you know what? I really am not bothered. They can go to somebody else who needs them because I've just got more. And it's going to be the same with Orla. Orla is particular about having everything labelled. She has all her animals labelled, all her coats and everything labelled. In fact, she hasn't got a label in her new coat, and that was a big thing this morning, that she needs a label in her new coat. So I need to get a label for that. But she is one of those children who, if it's not got a label in it, won't be hers. She has to have a label in it, and then she'll see that label and that will be hers.
And I think you can now get them with like little pictures, can't you? Because obviously when they can't read, they don't even know what their name looks like always, do they?
There's a French website which they ship to the UK. It just takes about 10 days and they are the cheapest that I've found. And I cannot remember what they're called at all, but I have to find out. But it's something like, you can get something like 30 labels for £9 or something. And they're the type that you can just stick on anything. They wash fine. They go in the dishwasher fine. They can't really be peeled off. They're fantastic. They get a little picture on them. You can have first name, second name, or just one like surname on them, which I do now because I've got so many children. So just put the surname on. And the kids get to pick their colours and change the font. And it is a very fun, exciting thing to do. And then they can just peel them off and stick them themselves.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have to do it. So that's another thing that they can take ownership over, right? This is your set of uniform.
Yeah.
These are your shoes. Pop all your labels on these, and then away you go.
Then you're off.
You're good to go.
Yeah. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit already about being part of a community and how you kind of get to know one another.
Yeah.
How can we help our children make new friends? You know, I think you talked a little bit about with the parties side of
going
things.
to parties.
Yeah.
Making friends with adults yourself and arranging play dates is a really good thing. A lot of parents, especially in the summer term, most schools have a park nearby. I don't know how that came about, but they do. And it won't be far. And most children will go to the park after school because as much as parents want to be with their children, they also want their children to burn off any energy that they've got left over from school. So go to the parks, sit with the parents from the class, even if you don't, just say hi and then sit down near them, and you don't necessarily join in the conversation immediately. Just being around them and hearing what they're speaking about and seeing who their children are, and encouraging your child to then go and play. Oh, isn't so-and-so from your class? Why don't you go and help them on the swing? Or why don't you go down the slide with them? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Arrange play dates, picnics. That was one thing that was good for the WhatsApp group. At the end of every school year, on the last day, we would go to the park. Everybody would take a bit of food and we'd have like a mini picnic before taking the kids home to start the summer holidays.
Lovely.
And it was just a lovely way for us all to get together one last time before we broke up for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone was coming back in the September, but it was just a nice way to end it.
Yeah. And I guess you can keep communication through the summer, especially if you're starting school.
Yeah.
You want to keep that momentum going, don't you?
Yeah. And even children from preschool, if you know the parents and you've got on with the parents and you've had a few play dates, have a couple of those through the summer, even if they're not going to the same school, just to remind them that their old friends are still important.
Yeah.
And you haven't forgotten that they've got those friendships.
You're just adding more, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But if they're going to the same school, even more reason to get together so that then on the first day, they'll be like, oh, we saw each other last week. That's great. Let's keep playing.
Yeah, that's really good. What about if you've got a child who is struggling to settle? Because obviously there are children are very different. Some are like desperate to start and run in the door and like barely say goodbye to their mum. That's also okay. Some children just don't do emotion. They just get in there. Other children are clinging for dear life to a parent and really find the first few days or weeks really difficult. How can we help our child if that is the case?
The first thing that I would say to do, obviously, is pray about it.
Yeah.
But talk to the class teacher. Yeah. And if you have the opportunity, talk to the class TA. I have said I'm the TA in the foundation group stage that I'm working with. And I've worked really hard to build solid relationships and lines of communication with families, because it is really important that you have that. Talk to the TA, talk to the class teacher, and be really honest. If there's things going on at home, if there's things going on in the community, or if there's things going on in the wider family, even if you don't think that they're going to affect your child, you don't know how they are affecting your child. Yeah. If your child is hearing you speak about something that is worrying for you, it's going to be just as worrying or more worrying for that child if they don't fully understand it. So by being honest and just being open and having that kind of line of communication both ways can be really helpful. Equally, if there's problems at school, then the teacher and TA will want to come and say, look, this isn't big, it's just minor, or it is big, and can we have a conversation about it? Yeah. And having that open line of communication is a fantastic way for your child to settle. The TA obviously usually has more time to spend with the children than the class teacher. And the TA's job isn't just to assist the teacher, it's to be there for the child and be there for all the children. And there is a lot of children in these classes. But as the TA, you're quite often, especially in the first half term to the full term, that's what the teacher expects of you. They expect you to get down with the children, to learn about the children, to hear what their interests are. And it's amazing how much you can remember about what 28 children tell you. But that is really helpful to them, and it's really good for them, because when they come to writing reports, they will come to the TA and say, oh, so-and-so, how are they doing with this? How are they doing with that? What do you think they're like when they're socialising? And it is the TA's kind of job is to have that relationship with that child, and then to have that relationship with the parents as well, which is great. I often send messages. We have a system called Class Dojo, which is an app that you can download, and I will send messages to the parents daily sometimes, depending on the child, how well they're doing, if they've had any issues, if there's anything bigger that needs to be dealt with. I will say, can you come in a little bit earlier and we're going to have a conversation? Because I have that relationship with them. I've worked hard at fostering that relationship with them, and it really does benefit the child because they know then, hang on a minute, when this TA talks to my parents, it's not necessarily bad.
No.
Sometimes they're telling them, oh my gosh, they did a fantastic job in phonics, or they're doing really well with their reading. Thank you for all your help at home.
Yeah.
Parents need that too. They need to hear that what they're doing at home is making a difference in school.
Yeah.
And schools these days are doing a lot of interventions to help bridge the gap that COVID caused, that the pandemic caused. And I have several intervention groups that I run, and I will message those parents, even though they're from other classes, and say, oh, they're doing fantastic. I want you to know that they're working so hard. Thank you for everything you're doing at home, because it's showing at school. It's really making a difference. And to have that open line of communication, it means that when big things do happen or mistakes are made, you can approach it in a way that isn't negative, and it isn't going to bring anybody down. It isn't going to cause friction between the parent and the school, which that's what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
We want the open line of communication. We want you to feel safe, that your children are safe, that they're well cared for and looked after. So definitely talk to the teacher and TA first. Even if they've not seen anything initially, they will keep an eye on your child. They will keep checking in with your child. Where we have spaces called quiet spaces where they can get something cuddly that they can cuddle, or something that they can fiddle with. And we know as adults that if a child is sitting there and they haven't been asked to sit there to calm down, then we need to go and see what's going on there. Is it that they needed just some quiet space, some quiet time because it's getting a bit rowdy? Or is there something bigger going on? Or is there something that they don't feel comfortable talking about in front of other children and they want a one-to-one? And opening up that, do you want to speak to me? Or would you prefer to speak to a different teacher? And things like that. There's also I know not every school runs it, but our school runs an ELSA program, and it's Emotional Literacy Support Assistant. And they offer support for a whole range of things. And it's invaluable to children who are going through transitions or behaviour issues or bereavement, all sorts of things. They cover such a wide range of emotions and emotional literacy, things that children really... Sometimes they need guiding through, and they need support
a bit of extra.
A bit of extra. And they've been on courses where they've been taught how to speak to children about these things, how to bring them up, and how to guide them through it in ways that I don't necessarily know. But as teachers and TAs, we can refer them for this offer. And then they get that one-to-one support in an afternoon, and they get like a cup of juice and a biscuit. So it makes it really fun, and they get to do colouring or hammer beads or something which helps them to feel super calm, where they can be open and they can talk. And sometimes it's done in groups and sometimes it's done individually. But that is a really great program, and it is really fantastic for children who are struggling. And parents can also get involved in that. Through that ELSA program, they also run Fun for Families. And families can then be brought in and be in the school and be in the environment with the staff and their children, which it is a really key to building that bridge and having that communication.
I think one thing to bear in mind as well is when they start school, particularly, children are really tired, aren't they?
Oh my gosh, so tired.
They are exhausted. They might be full of daft energy, but then they completely stop. And I remember after school, I often would park the kids in front of the telly, because I'm just like, you just need to zone out for a little bit and process. And it was a quiet space where I could make the tea, because they needed to eat early, because they weren't staying awake long.
So
I think early nights, but that's some really basic, but it's actually something really important to bear in mind, that they're actually really tired. I remember we had like a book corner area, and we had a child who literally just fell asleep and they were just gone. And that isn't uncommon. And I think just knowing that they are tired, because everything is new, so however your child expresses themselves when they're tired, expect that, and build that time in to allow them to get to bed early, allow them time to just sit and chill and process. I remember Little Red Tractor way back in the day was our favourite friend, because after school that was what we used to sit and watch and go, okay, let's just stop and relax. You don't need to talk to anyone for a while, you've got a bit of overload. And I've got very different children, and one of mine is really quiet and more sensitive to being in crowds, and they found that quite overwhelming. And I think sometimes the struggle can just be, oh my goodness, there were like so many kids all day, I'm done. And so just giving them that headspace when they get home to just unwind is really key, isn't it?
Even if they've been at nursery since they were born, even if they're used to being 7:45 till 6 p.m, going to school is a very different expectation. Nurseries and preschools, they're absolutely learning through play, and there's a lot less expectations on them. Whereas when they come to school, there is more expectations on how they sit on the carpet, how they walk in the corridors, how they approach different activities, how they approach other adults, all sorts of things. And they're sitting in the dining hall with hundreds of other children and the noise level is insane. And it doesn't matter how much staff try and keep that noise level down, it never works because there's just so many children and they all want to talk while they're eating. And then going straight outside to play, but they're playing with all these other bigger kids. It's a lot. And then they go straight back in and they're expected, right, we're going to get right back into learning. There's no nap time. There's no chill time. It's back into learning. And then, you're going home. And mums and dads are like, oh, how was your day? I don't know.
I'm done. I'm too full.
I've just whirlwinded my way through it. Yeah, and it's a lot. I remember Alice used to come home and immediately fall asleep on the sofa. And it didn't matter what I did with her to try and keep her awake. She would be asleep. And I just had to let her sleep and kind of reset and then give her tea. And then she'd suddenly pick up and tell me about her day. And that's just what had to happen for her. And it only happened for half a term, maybe, if that. And then they kind of get set into the routine of it.
I think also just, you might have lots of clubs that you want to do. I would personally recommend you wait till after your first half term because of that transition session where they're just too tired. And I think starting clubs, if you're like whizzing off to swimming straight after a full day of school, you're probably going to have a bit of a battle. Some children might cope, but some might find it too much. So
swimming is quite...
it's quite
a tiring activity too, and things like karate and things, acrobatic things. It is quite a physical activity, and it can make them then feel physically tired as well as mentally tired.
So manage those emotions well, because if they get overtired, that's when you get the behaviours.
That's when
kick
you get
off, isn't it?
And half terms, my advice is don't plan too much. Don't plan an activity every single day. If you're going on holiday, that's one thing. And you're planning to have late nights and things like that, but just be prepared that when they go to school the next week, they're going to still be tired because they've not had that full rest. What I always say is my top tip after many years is keeping the bedtimes the same in the shorter holidays. So half terms and most of the 2-week breaks at Christmas and Easter, bedtime is normal because they're still going to get up at 6 o'clock, regardless of what time I put them to bed. And then it gives them that they're still getting their solid sleep no matter what you do in the day, whether you have a calm, chilled day or whether you're out in Birmingham all day. They're still getting that solid amount of sleep, and that really helps their bodies and their brains to process
they're
everything.
growing, aren't they?
Absolutely.
They're very busy.
Then obviously summer holidays, that's a different ballgame. You've got much more time. And if you're going on holiday, just make sure that you've got a few days at the end of the holidays where you're kind of getting them back into, let's go to bed at a normal time. When we get up, we're going to have breakfast. We're not going to sit and watch TV until Mummy gets up. We're going to get back into routine because you're going to be going back to school.
Otherwise,
you're going
to
start school. Oh, yeah. Such a shock to them. And I do feel sorry. You can tell the kids that have gone on holiday and immediately come straight back to school because they are so tired. And you see them falling asleep in the afternoon on the carpet and you have to hold their head up.
Nearly time to go home, sweetheart. Keep going.
Don't lie down. Don't lie down. No mindfulness today because everyone's going to be asleep.
We'll save that for next week.
Let's do Just Dance or something to keep them awake.
Wow, we've covered so much there. If you could summarise at all in 3 key points, what would you say to a parent preparing their child for starting school? What would be your top
3 tips? Definitely pray and keep God in the centre of the transition, because like we've said so many times, God knows that this transition isn't easy, especially for small children, especially those, if they're turning 4 nearer the start of school, they are that little bit behind when they've got older children who maybe have been 4 for nearly a whole year, and they just need that reassurance that they're not alone. That this might feel like a huge step because it's big school and they're a big kid now, and we try and give them that kind of confidence of, you're going to big school now. But sometimes that can be really daunting. So pray about it with your child always. Take your time, get in the school supplies. I know that stores like Sainsbury's, they've already got their 25% off. Try not to buy uniform too soon because they will grow over the summer.
Very true. I've been victim of that.
Other things you can buy, bottles, lunch boxes, hair bows and things that, lots of children like their little school-coloured headbands and hair bows, book bags, winter coats that I'm going to need to buy this in a size up, that kind of thing. Start early and do it little and often so it starts to plant the seed of, we're getting ready for school, we're buying new things for school, and it's exciting. Because it can be really exciting to go to school and have all this new stuff. I think not just children, adults as well. We love getting new things. And especially they're getting a whole new wardrobe of uniform, new shoes, new PE kits, new bags. It's a lot of things. Yes. So do it small. Don't try not to do it all at the same time.
Access like Facebook groups where, because there's often school Facebook groups, aren't there, where you can buy secondhand uniforms. So
go to
it
the
can
school
get really
fete
expensive
as well.
Yes,
if
true.
you know which, by now you would know which primary school your child is going to. Go on their website, look at their Facebook page, see when their school fete is, because most schools now are having used uniform sales at their school fetes, and they've got boxes. I mean, absolute boxes.
All that lost property
of uniform.
That's where it goes.
Lost property gets washed and put in there. Donations that they've collected since COVID, because schools are very aware that we're in a crisis. Schools are also feeling the crisis, so they want to support families. So go to the school fete, look at the used clothing, see what you can get for your child for cheaper, because it's going to get paint on it, it's going to get Play-Doh on it.
That is so true.
It's absolutely going to get dinner on it.
And they're going to grow really quick.
And they're going to grow super quick.
So you're not going to be wearing it for long.
So definitely take your time, but start, if you're going to go to the school fetes in the summer, get the next size up, just in case you have a massive growth
spurt. Get a bit of everything.
Definitely.
With armfuls.
And then be brave. Talk to the parents. Going to the school fete is a great way because you can meet staff. Most of the staff will be there working there, and you can ask people to introduce you. Oh, who's going to be the class teacher? Who's going to do this? So that's a great way to get involved as well. And the school fetes are for the community. So even if there's generations there that they definitely don't have children at the school, you can still meet them and you'll see them around and things like that.
Yeah, really great.
Definitely be brave.
Be brave. That's a great one to end on. Thank you so much, Fran. There's so much. I mean, there's probably loads more we could share, but we've touched on quite a lot there. So hopefully there's been a lot that other people have found really helpful. Thanks for joining us so much. Really appreciate your time. Sure to follow us and check out all our posts and our previous episodes. But we'd love to hear your ideas. If there's other topics that we've not covered and you think, I'd love to know about, send us a message on livingrock.church/meet the parents and let us know your questions, your areas you'd like us to chat about, or your top tips. We also love to hear from you what your wisdom is. So please do share that. But that's it for today. Thanks ever so much for joining us. Thank you.